Hello and welcome to this roundtable discussion on modern kitchen design and the transition to electric. We're exploring an area of commercial kitchens that is often discussed and debated as it continues to gain traction. My name is Tina Nielsen. I'm the editor of FCSI's Foodservice Consultant magazine. For this session, which is sponsored by Spring USA, I'm joined by a panel of experts to talk through the challenges and opportunities that electrification brings to the industry. Gentlemen, welcome. Can I first ask all of you to introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you work, and a little bit about your expertise and experience. Andrey, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. Andrey Teleguz. I'm president and owner of a Scopos hospitality group. We are based in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia. And we work in higher education, country clubs, senior living, healthcare, designing hospitality experiences. We do food service design, interior design, branding, kind of bring the whole hospitality design together.
Okay. Ryan?
This is Ryan Rongo with S20 Consultants. I'm the Vice President of Design. I've been with S20 Consultants now for 9 years. Before then, I was on the dealer fabricator side, and happy to be here.
Okay. James?
Good morning, everyone. James Davella, Davella Studios president, owner, and founder. We've been in business for the last 20 years. We're headquartered in New York City, predominantly work on corporate dining, business and industry, and do both food service design and also MAS consulting.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And Nick?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Lekos. I'm the Global Director of Spring USA. Family of 3 brands now. It's Spring, Equipex, and VersaGuard. Been involved in pioneering induction for the last 20 years. Been with the organization and been personally involved in electrifying national chains from restaurants to hospitality with induction electric solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess to start off with, it'd be nice to set the picture on a kind of on a general level. I mean, how are you seeing electrification change the design or functionality of commercial kitchens on a general level? Ryan, do you want to pick that up if you have some thoughts on some of your personal experiences in your work?
Sure. There are certain jurisdictions throughout the country that are starting to move more towards electrification and getting away from natural gas equipment. And we've seen that primarily on the West Coast, but also in a lot of universities throughout the country. And so it's been driving a lot of designs and sort of the collegiate aspect, and then also our main focus here is sports, where we're seeing a lot of stadiums now start to go to all electric appliances throughout their facilities. Partially, some of that's due to lead requirements and how they want to try to accomplish some of those lead points they're trying to meet. And then also just general sustainability goals have changed over the years. So there's been this big desire to move towards electrification of their kitchens and other food service support spaces.
Okay. James, what are you seeing?
With the majority of our work with corporations, they have instituted electrification as part of their sustainability programs. So we've been working with 100% electrification for the last 5 years. On top of that, we've always designed a hybrid solution. So we haven't put in a 100% gas-fired kitchen in more than 10 years, I'd say. So moving into more electrification has been a natural occurrence for us. And the fact that we have clients that are making that part of their initiatives, it's been an easy movement for us to do so, though we did find a lot of difficulty finding manufacturers produced in the United States that were able to meet the needs and our design standards. So we had to look to Europe for quite a long time, and still do.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Andrey?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of actually something interesting. A lot of holding companies reaching out to us and with their set goals where they want to attract more eco-conscious customers and kind of get this, hey, we have a strategy in place and we're going to become carbon zero footprint in in so many years. So what they're doing is they're reaching out saying, hey, we have a gas kitchen, we need to convert it. Can you survey? Can you tell us what's it gonna take to do that? So a lot of projects like that are coming up and helping our clients to convert and at least have a plan in place to get there.
How interesting. Just on that, Andrey, what's the ratio between, say, like converting a kitchen to from gas to electric and to completely new kitchens? I mean, how many kitchens are you converting?
I say a couple dozen here and there, and I think that's just strictly as a project for a conversion. But obviously, like James was saying, a lot of our natural projects that we are designing, we are intentionally, suggesting and kind of pushing our clients that way, regardless of the ask, right? Because we feel like it's just the right thing to do. As far as new build construction from the ground up, I think we're actually maybe just doing one big project in New York that's all ground up. That was the strategy. That was the plan.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So, Nick, I think it's interesting to get the manufacturer's perspective here, just like dialing back to, say, so you've been working in this sphere for 20 years. How have you seen it evolve over time, and when did it really start getting onto operators and consultants' radars?
Yeah, I would say the first time in 2019, we had a national restaurant chain. They challenged us to activate and elevate their fajita menu item. So they wanted to sear quickly, and they wanted to have this appliance back of the house. So they wanted to exceed 700 degrees in 70 seconds. And they said they wanted a safe way to do that. So they introduced a countertop induction solution, which is electric, very energy efficient. It was 3,500 watts. So that a cast iron griddle, and it activated and elevated that temperature. So with that, it was energy efficient, was easy to add on, and that was 2019, and that was 2,000 locations. So that really kind of caught our attention and say, look, some of these operations are looking for energy efficiency. It depends on the footprint. There's three things we say: power, space, and budget. Those are three things that shape the conversation, and it's all driven by menu. And then also the initiatives that kind of piggybacks upon what James, Andrey, right? It's all about these sustainability initiatives, and some are leading the way, I think, a bit more than others. And I think it's all about some operations are looking for the responsibility of their operation. So they really want to reduce zero carbon footprint to the best of their ability. I think, but nothing's perfect. And I think Andrey cited it. It's not numerous, but it's now taking shape in certain parts of the country.
So it's been a slow moving journey in a way. Yeah.
If I could add to that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Where we've also seen a robust movement for electrification is in the world of ventless appliances. As you know, there's going to be no gas appliances underneath a ventless cooking system. So the fact that we work in so many jurisdictions where ventless equipment makes the most sense, because we don't want to, run anything out to a roof or through a pollution control unit. Ventless equipment has been getting specified by our teams for many years now. So we've had to embrace electrification because of those reasons. And now that you can put electric equipment underneath canopies that are running through, as essentially ventless pollution control units, it has put a lot more pressure on the manufacturers and ourselves to find those appliances, because gas is just not going to be a solution when you're speaking about ventless.
James, I think it's interesting because we often hear that this has come from California. California's, because they're if I might be wrong, but if I'm right in thinking that California are legislating for electric equipment in new kitchens. But you say you haven't installed a gas kitchen in the last 5 years in New York.
100% gas. Yeah, we've been putting in hybrid solutions, so both gas and electric. To Andrey's earlier points, moving our clients to things that are a great deal more efficient. As we know, electricity is, for a fuel source, induction even more. So we made those decisions as a firm a long time ago that we were going to go with hybrid solutions, and it was accepted by our client teams and also the operators that we bid the project work out to. So they've been very successful with it. They understand the transitions, some of the limitations of maybe some retraining, but they've also embraced that. For example, we did a large financial institution, and the only gas-fired appliance was a hearth oven, because everybody wants to see the flame and the live fuel there. But outside of that, everything else was 100% electric, and the chefs were happy, the customers happy, the clients happy.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that we've always experienced on our end is getting the buy-in through the operators and the chefs. So I think a lot of the industry is still, heavily into gas. We haven't seen a lot of buy-in yet with the chefs and operators with electric appliances, and sort of getting them on board and having them understand sort of the benefits, how quick the recovery is compared to a gas appliance, energy usage. It's been one of the challenges that we've been experiencing in our end, trying to get chefs and operators on board to moving towards electric appliances in lieu of, traditional gas-fired appliances.
Why do you think they're resisting it, Ryan?
I think that the industry grew up with gas-fired appliances, and there was this old perception, which is a valid old perception, that electric equipment didn't have the recovery or the firepower that gas-fired appliances did. And, through technology, updates and new innovations, we've found that in most circumstances that electric is just as good as gas is, in terms of recovery and firepower, which I think are the two primary drivers in determining, electric or gas appliances. The thing we've seen sort of like behind is charbroilers. There are electric charbroiler options out there, but we've found that they don't perform quite as well as the gas options do. So there's been some pushback with that, but we've been able to find alternate solutions to gas or electric charbroilers that also sort of meet that operational need. And we've been successful in making those transitions in our projects.
Yeah. Ryan, are there any market segments where it's easier to sell in, or where it's more dominant?
Yeah, the challenge with my firm is that we primarily focus on only a handful of market segments. So we're mostly sports oriented, and we don't deviate too far from what we do in sports. But we have a lot of sports clientele who have decided to start moving towards electrification across the country. But outside of that, we've seen some BNIs moving towards electric, depending on, again, sort of that sustainability goal for that particular client.
Okay. And
I think,
Andrey?
if I can add, Tina, to that, I think where induction really for us comes into play is second points of service, right? So it's the smaller outlets on a campus that we want to serve food and want to be able to serve a menu, but the kitchen is really far away. So what do? Do I still add gas there, or can I now maybe potentially engineer my menu around an induction solution? So so for us, like, we do a lot of senior living, and senior living is essentially you're building a resort. So I have a central production kitchen, but then I have a small coffee shop. I have a full bar, right? That's away potentially from the kitchen. So now I can do a pantry in the back with induction, ventless induction. And now I can do a small plate tapas menu at that bar, and I don't have to rely on the kitchen. So it gives us more opportunity to expand the menu on second points of service.
James, do you have anything to add to that?
I do agree with Andrey's points. That's where the ventless is really lending itself to be solution oriented when you're getting away from a main kitchen, which might be a hybrid design. But then as you get further away from the mothership, that's where ventless is certainly going to be very good solutions. Obviously, Spring makes several options for that, and we've used in the past. Induction is always going to be the leader in probably the type of transfer of medium to the pan. We use similar as well. So it's only going to grow as the customer base understands that they're not really giving anything up, to Ryan's points, and that's where the retraining is happening. So as long as the culinary schools are embracing induction today, the students are going to find that coming out. I mean, when I went to culinary school, there was no induction that we were spending time on. We had one electric kitchen, which was supposed to simulate what it was be like working on a cruise ship. So it was very specific types of appliances. Outside of that, the majority of it was either steam fired or gas fired. But that was a long time ago. And to Ryan's point, the manufacturers have made significant improvements on transferring energy from electric fired into the appliance itself. So the recovery is there. I've yet to see a char broiler that I would want to cook on and actually eat a piece of product off of, a steak, a burger, whatever the case may be, because it's just not imparting the same flavor profile that we're all used to. But I think that we'll get past that, or we're going to have to modify menus and people's expectations.
Yeah. Okay. Nick, just on that point of different market segments, are there any particular market segments that you see a bigger uptake than in others?
Yeah, I think I'll speak to the segments, also build on what everyone just said. I think it's a combination of the ventless solution, which also extracts smoke, grease, flavor, and odor, extracts heat too. So I think it's all about lowering the heat within the environment. And I think OSHA states anything over 80 degrees is unsafe. So they recommend 68 to 7 degrees within that kitchen. So with that combination of electric, whether it be an induction griddle, or induction platform, we've created multiple solutions for that vent solution, whether it be a countertop vent system that we put into a soup and salad place or a B&I, to a down-draft filtration system that we have Fordham University and actually the Atlanta Falcons placed in their owner suite. They wanted to have a clean air environment, also a safe environment. To finally, we have a mobile fire suppression system that we have at the 50-yard line at Rutgers University in New Jersey. So and that's an induction griddle. So we have griddles that could transfer into holding pots to sauteing. So it's all, once again, driven by the menu. We have to figure out what the menu needs are within that particular space, and then say what supports that menu and what's the most flexible. I think flexibility is key, but also planning what are the power needs to execute something like that. And for example, our countertop vent pulls 3 amps. Our absorber is 5 amps, 110 volt. So it's burning less than 10 cents per kilowatt hour to operate the thing. So we're creating solutions that, depending on the menu, the need, we could implement that and support what everyone's designing here for that operation.
Okay.
And
Ryan.
we've seen.
No, go on.
Well, I was going to add to that a little bit too here. What we've seen, really one of the benefits of these systems is that they're ventless, but that they're also mobile. And so, Nick had mentioned club spaces for the Atlanta Falcons. We've also seen other club spaces and facilities, other sports facilities, where these mobile ventless solutions are able to sort of change the menu for that event. So they're able to wheel in these mobile ventless units and then provide a separate menu or a different menu depending on what sort of program is being provided for that particular event. And then we've also, in Illinois, we work on a lot of high schools, a lot of collegiate facilities. And there are high schools here where they're starting to build culinary labs into these school programs. And we've been very successful in creating these mobile ventless solutions that sort of wheel around the classroom or wheel from the classroom to the culinary arts lab, where the teacher or educator is able to then do presentations on that system in front of the students. And it's sort of a learning tool as well.
Yeah, okay. Andrey, so we've talked a little bit about it before, but what are the environments where electrification is most beneficial and the most obvious places to put it or to introduce it?
Well, I talked about the second points of service, so that is big for us. Coffee shops, same thing, because now I don't necessarily have to rely just on the speed ovens like a Merrychef or Turbo Chef. Now I can actually have an induction griddle like Nick was talking about with their unit. with the cooktops. I can overlay a griddle. So now that expands the menu of those venues significantly much more to a full breakfast option and things like that then can carry over into lunch. And now I'm in Philly area, so we can do Philadelphia cheesesteaks on the grill, right? So it gives you a lot more options that, you typically previously in ventless was only able to do in speed ovens, right? So that definitely helps the menu and helps our clients expand their menu, think outside the box and the limitations that they previously had experienced.
To what extent, James, do you act as an educator in your role as a consultant going into an operation, new or existing?
Oh, that's our role, to be that trusted advisor. So we're constantly educating our client on what's the best program for their operation and why. And then, as we go through concepting, we're developing menus for them and the way we anticipated operating when, after it gets built. So then we can, find an operator that's just as excited as we are when we were designing and programming it to operate it. Right. And so there's a constant education and pulling a string through your initial ideas to fruition and opening.
So Ryan, part of this effort or exercise to educate the client, what are you listing as the biggest benefits to electrification?
Well, so there are tools readily available, thankfully, by the engineers and manufacturers that help us sort of tell the story of sort of the difference between gas and electric. And so there's enough information out there to sort of show what the recovery rates are, what the production rates are, what the energy consumption rates are. And then we're able to use that to sort of help guide our clients into, the direction that we'd like them to take, whether it's electrification or whether it makes sense to stick with gas, depending on, the operation and the needs of that particular client.
Yeah. Does it ever make sense to stick with gas, or is this the inevitable direction of travel that we're going in, that you're going to be less and less likely to say gas is the best way for you?
Yeah, well, I think James made a point. There are with wood fire, or not wood fire, but gas fired pizza ovens, there are certain showpieces where the operator, the client, wants that flame effect, where it's not necessarily something that you can accomplish with electric equipment. Or again, there's certain flavor profiles that you're trying to accomplish with certain pieces of equipment. For instance, the charbroiler, where you're really not going to be able to get that out of an electric charbroiler, but you may want to stick with gas appliances for that particular piece of equipment. And there are instances where we've run into clients who are sort of using primarily electric equipment, and they're using a few pieces of gas equipment here to supplement what may not be able to accomplish with electric use.
Yeah. Nick, when you hear when you hear, Nick, that currently there are no alternatives or no good electric alternatives to the charbroiler, for example, what do you say to that? Is this something you're intensely working on in the manufacturers to try and come up with something?
Well, we're focused on our current solution family of products, which are induction griddles, vent systems. But just to support everyone on this call, that conversation piece about education, I think, is so important. So we were able to achieve the first commercial Energy Star rating for induction in North America. So it's a third-party tested independent body that recover response times, heat transfer, and overall cost efficiency. So these are some of the benefits. Is we're trying to make it easy to say, look, these manufacturers are investing in this efficiency. This is proven to save energy efficiency, lower their carbon footprint. So it ties into that sustainability narrative. So how do we help them? But I just want to underscore the education piece. I think it's so important as industry leaders to carry that message to these operations themselves and say, how do we implement this? How does this work? Where do we start? But some of that is like that certification that we achieved was creating a high level of energy transfer and still executing. It's all about the food. I'm not ignorant to say it's really all about the food and executing the right menu for these operators.
James, you
If I
want
could
to add
add,
something?
yes, where we're finding challenges to your earlier question about gas fired, there's a plethora of manufacturers that produce gas fired equipment, and you could find it on a full spectrum of cost as well. So we find that's not the case for electrification and induction, where there's fewer players and usually the costs are more expensive. When you just compare, one countertop griddle or burner assembly to its counterpart in gas. So the capex is going to be much more expensive for the electrification, which we understand. So that's part of the education. But the OpEx and the life of that, the cost of ownership might be far less based on the rates that you're getting and the efficiency. So that's our conversation that we do have. And like I said, a lot of our clients are invested for 15 or 20 years in the facility that they're going into. So it's really an easy ROI for them. But if you're looking at smaller operation that might be a mom and pop, or that they're signing for a shorter term, that capex conversation is going to come to the forefront all the time, and that's where we have a more difficult time convincing our clients to move into electrification, and that's why the gas solution might be far simpler, and also because of the skill set that they might be hiring, they're much more used to working on gas-fired appliances.
Okay. So what steps can operators take to start optimizing their kitchen with electric? James, if we stay with you, if they're not ready to go all in, where do they start?
I think that they should follow suit in how the European manufacturers have been using electrification for years. And it's in the heavy duty, and then it works its way into the more countertop, so the price point comes down. It is something that could be a complete solution. So it's not just a countertop appliance here and there, but fully built in. We design quite a few suites, and we've been struggling to find manufacturers in the United States that could build electrified suites to the same ability that they do gas fired. So it's a big step. It's an investment. It's finding the right technology. It's supporting the technology. It's the service companies that can then replace a piece that is more expensive to replace and could fail based on abuse or even the wrong type of washdown that we've seen. Uh, some of these inductions can be a bit temperamental. They perform when they're performing, but if they break, it takes a bit of time to get them replaced, as opposed to parts that are usually on most of the trucks for gas-fired equipment. Again, another education piece. So, seeing it full circle, it's one thing to have it specified, but it's another thing to have it actually be maintained and serviced at a relatively quick pace, because that's what we expect in food service.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes into us also educating maybe even our custom fabricators. Let's say I'm in building in induction, is how is that accessibility to that induction component, venting, and to swap out. Like I know working with Nick, we're thinking about, or even the ventless component that Nick has, it's the ability of that induction piece breaks to be able to just swap the whole induction component and not disassemble the unit at all, right? So it's thinking beyond the typical traditional fabrication practices that we usually would if we were just building something custom. Now we have to think about that maintenance component.
Yeah.
Ryan, in your area of expertise in the sporting facilities and the colleges, what role does the ventless equipment play? How much have you seen that grow exponentially over the years?
Ventless is extremely important in sports, particularly, but also in other market segments as well. But for sports, and speaking specifically to sports, we're talking about very large facilities with numerous cooking locations, and the challenges of getting black iron out through all of those spaces is significant and very costly. And so we see ventless as like a supplemental substitution to doing black iron throughout these locations where we want to do cooking, but we may not necessarily have the infrastructure or the ability to run black iron to an exterior location. So there is a lot of ventless cooking in a lot of these facilities. And there are also sometimes supplemental POS that need to be provided out on concourses. For instance, we try to do as many fixed POS in concessions or markets, whatever it may be, in the building, but sometimes because of other needs, there's a desire to do something on the concourse. And again, if it's a cooking solution, we need to do something that's going to be ventless to accomplish any menu out in those locations.
James, we spoke a little bit about the challenges that come with this transition to electric. What is the number one biggest challenge that you've come across, and how do you overcome it?
About moving to electrification,
Sure.
for us, it's finding the power. We work in a myriad of high rises in New York City and elsewhere, and a lot of these buildings already have their power feeds coming to them. And then the first thing we do is calculate what we anticipate a new design is going to require as far as electrification, and finding out if we know that the floor typically is never going to have the correct amount. So then we're pulling several stories above, several stories below, just to reroute power for these kitchens. It's a considerable increase in electricity. It requires a lot of conversation early on. We found that some buildings we've gone into, they've had to actually pull new services from the utility provider back into the building, which again is a very large expense. But if that's a tenant that the client requires for their sustainability initiatives, then they will make the investment. As I said, they're signing on for 20 years in their new space. So it is something that we talk about immediately, straight away. I mean, we know we're going to find appliances and then we're going to make the design, but we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're going to require a significant, and I mean a shocking amount of electricity and power for kitchens that most engineers are not anticipating, right? So we have that straight away, and usually get it early enough on that during lease negotiations that we are making sure that we have the correct power rerouted to the floors that we require.
Yeah. I mean, I know consultants often tell me that it's important that they're part of the conversations really early on, but it strikes me in this kind of scenario, it's especially important that it's crucial that you're in at an early stage.
I think it's also important that we, in new designs, we're advocating for electricity or electrification early in the design process, because, Reg, the reading of the tea leaves is that this is sort of the way that the industry is going to be heading, is that electrification is here. It's being implemented or instituted in a lot of jurisdictions. It's going to be mandated in a lot of locations, and maybe that's not at this point currently mandated, but in the future, we think a lot of jurisdictions will require it. So building gas appliances and then having to retrofit it later is a massive challenge, a massive undertaking, because again, they do draw a lot of power, and bringing in new infrastructure into a renovation is very challenging, especially when it comes to electricity. So new panels, you need to create wall space for those panels, and it's something that needs to be taken into consideration during the design process, and the earlier the better.
Yeah, and I think having those conversations with the client is balancing the benefits down the road, right? Because by doing so, we can future-proof the kitchen and allow more ability to make the easier changes down the road. and be able to swap out as the menu changes, right? Because operators want to hear that because they know they're going to have to adopt and evolve and be able to offer different menu to the clients, their clients. So having the ability to swap out equipment, it's much easier with electric down the road once you have that load capacity versus running gas lines and inspections and all maintenance of gas lines and things like that.
Yeah. Nick, from the manufacturer perspective, how important, how valuable is this information to you? I mean, how important are the consultants to you as a manufacturer in terms of how you develop new products, for example?
Their feedback's extremely important. They're touching the operators quite often, and they're listening to real life situations and real life barriers that are coming up. And to speak what James said, running power up these multiple floors of a building is not inexpensive. So I think the RI discussion needs to be talked about early, as everyone said here, and just to further carry that message to some major segments. Us as a company, we're going to major hospitality chains such as Marriott, Hilton, IHG, and one of those brands is actually selecting a hotel in the near future to prove a point. So they're actually going to find a hotel and measure the gas consumption of a 4 natural gas burner for 4 months. Then they're going to remove it and place in a 4 2600 watt induction range system from Spring and grab those data points. So it's all about really proving these stories to people. So that is going to be an investment by a major hotel chain to carry that message to their hotel owners, their franchisees, to say, look, we're looking at the future as an organization. We're going to prove it to you, and we're going to share this information and data points with you. So we're really pleased that we want to help pave the way too by getting to these major hospitality chains. But in a partnership with the consultant community, I think it's critical because they're engaging in numerous operations, numerous projects around the country and world.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to finish off the conversation with asking each of you about how you see the future, how you see this evolving in the years ahead. Andrey, how do you see this? To what extent is the idea of an all-electric kitchen realistic, for example? Are we going to end up with hybrid kitchens? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the hybrid is still gonna be more prominent because I think the chefs and the experience and the consumer experience demand is still there, and Flame is that, and we do a lot of front of house designs, and I think that that's critical. It's important. So at least from our side and perspective, we see that that's going to be biggest driver for us. It's like the mothership might still have some components of gas and then maybe some of the front outlets, but especially the small decentralized second points of service, those all could be induction 100% and with flexibility of menu changing and things like that.
How about you, Ryan? What do you see coming down the track?
Yeah, I think infrastructure plays a big role in determining electrification in kitchens. And as I imagine electrification and infrastructure sort of continuing to develop, that electrification will become more and more prevalent in the industry. At least I'm hopeful for that.
James?
I see it growing for sure. I think we're going to follow suit in the way Europe has been building for years. I think there's a lot of benefit to electrification as the manufacturers start to become a great deal more efficient in the power that they're requiring to electrify the components. It'll put less stress on the build out. But I think the benefits of working in an electric kitchen, particularly the heat that is not thrown off into the space, is going to work in the benefit of the client and then the engineering team not having to take all of that heat and odor out of the kitchen. It's going to be that much more efficient to work in that type of an environment, and I think that's going to start to win out.
I think that's an excellent point to conclude on. So thank you so much, Andrey, Ryan, James, and Nick for joining this session and for sharing your thoughts and insights. Big thanks to Spring USA for supporting today's session. Thank you for watching, and check out fcsi.org for more food service consultant videos. Thank you.